This season in the NBA, we've seen so many unpredictable outcomes, pleasant surprises, and shocking disappointments, and no team has been more of an overachiever than the New York Knicks. Before the season began, I don't think anybody outside of the New York area thought they had a chance to contend for a playoff spot, and I'll admit I wasn't very high on their chances either, but they've proven everyone wrong this year and are now firmly supplanted in the standings with a chance to even have home court advantage in the first round if things remain as they are, currently in 4th place in the standings right now. Because of this surge to the top, new coach Tom Thibodeau has had a lot of difficult decisions to make, including shrinking the rotation, favoring those who are actually capable of contributing to the scheme he wants right now, and focus on the development of the younger prospects being pushed to the back burner. And as a result, a few once seen as promising youngsters on the team have found themselves plopped at the end of the bench, with playing time being very rare for them. One of these players is Kevin Knox, who I made a video about a few weeks ago, and the other is unfortunately Frank Ntilikina, who is the topic of today's video. The Knicks have had very inconsistent results in the draft lottery over the last few years, and Knox and Ntilikina represent some of their biggest misfortune. In this video, we'll be discussing what made Frank Ntilikina such an intriguing prospect in the first place, how he got to this point, what went wrong for him along the way, and whether or not he can revive his career. Before we start though, it turns out about 64% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Frank Ntilikina grew up in Strasbourg, France, and it was actually with SIG Strasbourg, who play in the French A-League, that he got his start as a professional basketball player. He started playing basketball with the team's youth academy at age 15, and from the very beginning of his time in that program, he was a clear standout. In 2014, he helped lead them to the French Youth League Championship, and that very year, he was invited to take part in the Jordan Brand Classic International game, where all of the top prospects from around the world are invited to showcase their skills in front of NBA scouts. Throughout this period, he was also participating with the French national team at the youth level, and at age 17, he got called up to the main professional team as well. While he didn't have a major role with Strasbourg immediately, he did make the most of the minutes that he did receive, and he played 2 seasons with the pro team, and in back-to-back years there, he won the A-League Young Player of the Year, which continued to put him on the map as an NBA prospect. After those 2 productive seasons, he declared for the 2017 NBA draft, and he was one of the most intriguing prospects in a class that was seemingly stacked with guard talent. Now, looking back at that draft, we did have players like Markelle Fultz, Lonzo Ball, Dennis Smith Jr., and Josh Jackson amongst others, who were all pretty highly touted, but have disappointed thus far, but that's a conversation for another day. Ntilikina's value in the draft came from the fact that he was far and away the best perimeter defender in the class. He's a 6'5" point guard with long arms, impressive quickness and athleticism, and strong instincts with a motor and competitive drive that pushes him to accept any matchup and make his presence felt. Perimeter defense is always valuable, but the unknown with him was always going to be with his offensive game. When you're a young player playing on an overseas professional team, there's a pretty good chance that you won't be playing very often unless you're a bona fide stud as a teenager like Luka Doncic was. Overseas teams have a history of limiting young prospects by placing them into small roles, where they do a certain job and a certain role, and rarely get to experiment or show their full capabilities. So that's why we've seen to have so many unpredictable international prospects over the years who either flame out early or emerge far past what anyone expected of them. Ntilikina was very similar to this and was in the same bubble, where he was playing fewer than 20 minutes per game with Strasbourg, he wasn't exactly a primary ball handler or playmaker, and he didn't have to create very often. So while NBA teams looked at his physical attributes and thought they would be able to develop an offensive game with him, perhaps they should have been a bit more cautious. Ntilikina, of course, ended up going top 10 in that draft, being selected 8th overall by the New York Knicks, and going to a team like the Knicks with such a massive fan base and such immense pressure, he was in the spotlight from day one. Admittedly, the perimeter defense in his game did immediately translate to the NBA, and as a rookie, it was very apparent he could be a lockdown player on that end of the floor, which just isn't something you see in rookies very often. If there's one thing 99% of rookies struggle with in the NBA, it's defense and it's scoring efficiency. Because that first season is usually used as an adjustment period to the level of physicality and pace that the teams play at. Frank was already ahead of the curve on the defensive end, so rightfully the fans of the Knicks were very excited with his potential, but offensively, he was still like most rookies, where his production was inconsistent, inefficient, and in need of a lot of work. This would have been literally nothing to worry about if he came out in his second season and showed off a bit more confidence and comfort handling the ball, shooting it, and making plays, but unfortunately he regressed in many of those areas, and that's where the first red flags began to pop up. In Frank's second season, he shot the ball only 34% from the field and 28% from three, while scoring fewer points per game than he had as a rookie, with both of those shooting percentages being quite worrisome and also down from his rookie year as well. Going into his third season, which was last year, he was in desperate need of some improvement offensively, but once again his season featured a lot of the same with him, where he was still the menace defensively, but someone who also struggled to make an impact offensively. He still had not shot over 40% from the field in any season. His three-point shooting was well below league average, his passing and playmaking didn't show the necessary flashes, and that leads us to this current season. In those first 3 years of his Knicks career, they were still a tanking, rebuilding team, but now, as we all know, the Knicks have actual playoff goals. When the Knicks hired Tom Thibodeau to be the team's new coach, you would have thought that it would help Ntilikina tremendously, because if there's one thing that Thibodeau loves, it's defense. Surely a defensive-minded head coach would find a role for a young defensive stud, right? Well, that's where you'd be wrong. Thibodeau has worked wonders on the Knicks' overall defense for sure, as they currently rank as the 4th best defense in the league this season right now, but Ntilikina has been regulated to pretty much only getting minutes in garbage time this year. What hurts is that with the team's defense being so good without Ntilikina out there, it's not necessarily that his efforts aren't needed, but it's more so about how much he struggles in what the teams actually do need. The Knicks don't exactly have the best spacing in the world, with very few legitimate shooters in the rotation. The Knicks have the 17th ranked offense, which is fairly subpar and mediocre at best, so they can't afford to play someone as non-productive on offense as Ntilikina is, which would hamper them even further on that end. And it's evident by the fact that the Knicks score 9 fewer points per 100 possessions when he is on the court. In the last 20 games that the Knicks have played, Frank has only played in 9 of them. All of those appearances were for fewer than 5 minutes, and 5 of them were for 1 minute or less. This is his 4th season in the NBA. It's not supposed to be like this at all. When you're this deep into your career, you're supposed to at least have carved out some sort of role for yourself if you want to stick around for the long run. We've seen similar career paths for players like Dante Exum, who was a highly touted international defensive prospect who fizzled out because of his struggles offensively, and unfortunately, the Knicks have all but accepted the fact that he's been a bust for them. He hits restricted free agency this summer, but the team hasn't done anything really to indicate that they'll prioritize bringing him back, so his next chance very well might be his last one. If he wants to be able to turn things around, he's going to have to go to a team in desperate need of perimeter defensive help, and most importantly, he's going to have to find a way to be impactful on the offensive end. He is still only 22 years old, so by no means is it time to fully give up on him, but time is definitely ticking. The Knicks have given up on him, so next year is going to be monumental for the future of his career in the NBA. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about Frank Ntilikina and his future in the league. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.